Alright, so I've got my camera now on a tripod, so hopefully that'll stabilize and make a neater worm video here. So I've got my bin that I did a previous video on, and this is the one that has what I've calculated at maybe 750 worms that I got from somebody locally, as well as 1,400 worms that I have pulled out of the manure pile in my backyard. And I've counted each of those one at a time and added them into here, as well as cocoons. And so this is more my mixed bin, where I've got red wiggler bins. Otherwise, this is sort of an experimental wild worm bin. See how it does compared to the other bins, and let's get into here and see how it's doing. So I cover it with this this very light cloth that I've got over the top, just helping to shade things out a little bit. So I do keep it fairly open. I don't put a plastic lid on top of this, for instance. I do that because the open air and the light will actually help keep the worms in a bit better, I think. If you have the lid on top, you'll open it up, they'll always be crawling up the top. Sometimes they'll be trying to crawl out the sides. If you keep it open, well, they're not big fans of light, and they're definitely not fans of light, and they're not fans of open air. As they get closer to the surface and they see that that's not where they want to go. Whereas if it's closed, oh, it's a nice, moist, dark environment all over. So I'm just killing off a few mites that I find here and there. So I keep it pretty open. Now I've done this bin last got fed 8 days ago, but I've given it a few feedings. And I do continue to feed around in this corner feeding method, this pocket feeding method. See that? Look at all these castings on the plastic bag here. It's just to help keep moisture in. Set this aside. One of the big things I've been feeding is cantaloupe, and you can see that the seeds from it just love to pop up in here. So I'll just tear those up, add them back in. It's all going to be good compost. But yeah, let's take a look a bit. So this was where I fed last time. Hopefully, we'll see how good of a view. I might have to tilt it a bit to really see. Okay. So this coffee filter that I used to show, well, I'm going to put a new one on there. This one's just going to get added in as bedding because it's just completely falling apart. But under this last feeding, there's just lots of nice, happy, healthy worms squiggling around in here. Beautiful. And there's a little bit of bread in the last feeding. There's some of that still around, but it's really got a good moisture down in there. They are definitely enjoying that corner. I'm just gonna tuck some of those greens back down in there. Little paper back over the top of that one. Now the previous corner that I had fed, I'll bring that over, I'll check that out, was over here. And at this point, they have just absolutely done away with every last bit of everything that was down in there. That's wonderful. So now it's, and there's still some newspaper, but it's for the most part just these castings down in here. There's no signs of food at all. That's wonderful. So they are doing a good job in this bin. Now today, oh, one little guy's making a break for it. Come back here. Put him back down here. And I say, worms don't really have a defined gender so much. They have all the requisite parts. So they can always find somebody to spend a good time with. Alright. So, feeding back in this corner today. I'm going to be doing pretty decent feeding because they have been eating very well in this bin. So I'm just going to dig it back, and there's also plenty of worms down here. Wherever you go in this bin, there's plenty of worms. I mean, we're talking over 2,000 worms in this bin so far, and that's just what I counted putting in. Who knows how many have hatched out. With the food supply and the way they're doing well in here, they're already going to be reproducing themselves. So they're doing great. Now for this feeding, I need a little bit of fresh newspaper. I do like to put down a little bit of fresh bedding. And then I've got a whole bunch of scraps here. Lettuce, which it's iceberg lettuce, so it's mostly water, which is good because that helps keep the moisture level right in the bin. And they will go through iceberg lettuce very quickly. So I'm just putting this down in here. Still using mostly leftovers and the occasional cheap head bought from Aldi's or something for the worms right now, but soon it's going to be time for the garden to be helping to contribute. Some frozen banana peels. They do like those. Those will last a little bit longer. Cantaloupe. They destroy cantaloupe like you wouldn't believe. In a week's time, and I'll try to remember to do a video a week from now to check in on this. We should see just the very thin layer on the outside of the rind left of the cantaloupe we put in here, because it is an absolute favorite of the worms of everything that I've been feeding them. So yeah, nice big feeding in the pocket here. And it seems like a lot of food, and it's a pretty good amount, but it's what's going to last this corner for 4 weeks, because I rotate each corner around the bin. So this corner won't be fed again until we make a full rotation. And we want the worms to migrate as well, but it's okay if there's a little bit left in that corner that they continue to snack on. So long as 4 weeks from now, when we get back to it, it's nice and empty, and they're continuing to get to the other pockets. So on top of that, got my grit, and this is just pulverized eggshells. A good amount of that on there, help their digestion, boost a nice amount of calcium in our final mix. I've got my coffee grounds. Plenty of those. Nice thing with coffee grounds is because it's such a fine material already for making coffee, it's pretty much just the perfect size for worms to come and gulp up a little grind here and there. And they can process coffee very quickly. All right. So the only thing left now is to cover this up. They should be very happy with what's in here. I'll make their way down to that. Leaves the bin pretty stacked up on this side for now, but that'll quickly go down. And we'll see, like in the corner from 2 feedings ago, where it's just sunk way down. The corner from 1 feeding ago, that'll be sinking down before long. If we go back, this is the one corner we didn't check. Over to there, and it's just nothing. There's a good amount of worms still. They do love their newspaper, and there's still plenty of newspaper, but you're not finding food scraps other than, again, some of these little seeds that are popping up that we don't want to grow too big, because then they're stealing nutrients from the castings, but it's alright if little ones pop up here and there. Alright. I'm going to throw a little more newspaper over the top of this. I like to keep a good newspaper layer. It helps keep the moisture inside, keeps it dark underneath of the newspaper. And worms just enjoy it. It's, you know, nothing but pureed, pulverized, dried out wood. So it is completely up their alley. And in time, they will completely process every bit of that down into fine worm castings. So This bin is already getting to be one of my heavier bins. There's a lot of worm weight in there, and they're already doing a good job with all the scraps. So I'm very happy with this bin and how it's progressing. I am still trying to bait out more worms from that manure pile. I know there's a bunch left that I could handpick one at a time, but I'm trying a few methods of trying to bait them and see if I can come up with a way to get the worms to come to me instead of me having to come to them. So I expect I'd like at least another 200 worms added into this from the manure pile. We'll see if that happens. I'll keep updating, and we will see where this bin goes. Oh, well, one last thing I need to add. Right where I fed today, just a couple of fresh, there's just unused coffee filters because I don't drink coffee. Alright, and that'll be right where we fed, and so we'll know next time that was our feeding. Actually, I'm going to put it on top. If I put it underneath, there will be no coffee filters next time. So if I put it on top, there's not a lot of moisture up here. There will be some because of the contents of the bin will circulate that moisture through, but they shouldn't be as interested in the coffee filters because I've given them stuff below that is far more interesting. So I'm just going to recover my plastic. It doesn't cover everything, and that's alright. I mostly just want to cover where I just fed, and keep that moisture as much in the bin as possible. Everything was feeling great in terms of moisture around the entire bin today, so I don't need to go adding any extra water. When I do add moisture to my bins, I tend to add ice cubes, because instead of just drowning the worms out all at one time, just put some ice cubes on the top of the surface and they will just slowly melt down, dribble that water in, and allow it to just fully hydrate everything in its path. So that's all I got for this bin today. It's looking very good. I'm quite happy with how it's progressing, and I think it's going to end up being a very prolific bin. Really looking forward to, in a few months' time, seeing where the population is when I harvest this bin, and got high hopes for it. So, thanks for anyone who watched my video. Hope nobody was too icked out by the worms. Ava, if you're watching, sorry. But I think they're just beautiful little creatures, and so I hope you enjoyed it, and everyone have a great day.